Hello, thank you for tuning in to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. It is now time for Side by Side, where we discuss issues relating to conflict, peace, and security. I am Reverend Father Robert Achiaga. My colleague Chiedu Ude is also in the studio. Good morning, Chiedu.
Good morning, Father Robert. Good morning, listeners.
At different times in Nigeria, Muslims have risen in condemnation and outright execution of those who were considered to have blasphemed the faith. This reaction, according to some Muslims, is dictated by the Quran itself, while others hold very strongly that the Quran does not grant any Muslim the right to determine the punishment for blasphemy except a legally recognized or constituted authority. In a modern, secular, democratic society like Nigeria, this has raised questions about whether the public life of citizens should be governed by Islamic Sharia law, or the Constitution of Nigeria, or even whether it is healthy for the two kinds of law to coexist in a pluralistic society. In the light of the extrajudicial murder or even execution of Miss Deborah Yakubu, a 200-level student of Sheikh Shagari College of Education, Wamako, Sokoto, last week, and previous cases of such executions, it has become imperative to ask questions and seek answers. This imperative is reinforced by the fact that this dastardly act, condemned by most Nigerians across religious, cultural, and political spectrums, was followed up with protests. It elicited both consoling and troubling reactions from political, religious, and public figures. On Side by Side today, therefore, we shall discuss matters arising from the death of Deborah Yakubu. Our aim is always to inform, shape perceptions, generate ideas, and inspire positive behavior in ways that make for peaceful coexistence. We shall be joined by a very special guest who will walk side by side with us to answer some of the nagging questions that have been thrown up by the death of Deborah Yakubu. In the meantime, we are going to take a look at some headlines of interest. Chiedu.
Deborah's death. Let us take a look at some headlines of interest. Okay, we begin with the foreign scene. Finland announces historic NATO bid and Sweden follows. The Finnish government has officially announced its intention to join NATO, and Sweden's ruling party followed shortly after a twin development that paves the way for a possible joint application to the military alliance. The announcements on Sunday, first by Finland and then Sweden, were a stunning reversal of their traditional and long-standing policies of military non-alignment. There can be no doubt that this development means a new crisis is brewing up. Secondly, 10 killed in racially motivated shooting at Buffalo grocery store. The Washington Post. Law enforcement authorities said Peyton on Saturday, Gendron, an 18-year-old white man, approached the store in a predominantly black neighborhood and opened fire on shoppers and employees, shooting 13 people, including a security guard. The massacre ended when he surrendered to police outside the store. He was charged with first-degree murder and held without bail, but he pleaded not guilty. Meanwhile, the shooting is being investigated as a hate crime and a case of racially motivated violent extremism.
The the case of violent extremism that is of the racial kind has persisted in the United States of America, and it remains quite a struggle. This happened over the weekend, and the young man who was involved in this is just 18 years old. And this is a bit worrisome, because if you see an 18-year-old take an assault rifle, enter a supermarket, a grocery store, and then shoots recklessly, kills people, over 10 people, and then in the court of law he says he's not guilty. You're dealing with motive. Why would he do this? Already law enforcement is pointing to some racial motivation. And then you're dealing with the cultural context, the racial color of this kind of crime. Already authorities are saying this man is a white man and he's a member of the white supremacist gang, and the ideology of white supremacy could have been behind this. I guess we have to wait so that proper investigation is carried out and law enforcement authorities let us in on the true motives and other details about these killings. But it is a terrible thing.
Already, a look into his social media profile revealed manifestos that are really troubling. There is a trend. And then for him to have actually streamed live the shooting means that he intends to influence others to repeat or what you call a copycat crime. It is worrisome for a young man of that age, and then pleading not guilty after that actually is a cause for worry, not just for American society, but it ties with the incident that happened in Nigeria just a week ago, where young students were actually filming what happened. Okay, let's go on.
Before we go on, we had informed our listeners that we would be joined by a very special guest today in the studio on the show. And I would like to announce the arrival of Sheikh Nuru Khalid. He's an Islamic cleric, a scholar, and a very peace-loving Nigerian. I was just reminding Sheikh Khalid this morning when we spoke that he might have forgotten, but he has been involved in a lot of peace work, and so once we had to interface on some documents concerning troubling situations even in the country. It is always good to have you in the studio and also to listen to you, Sheikh Nuru Khalid. You are welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's take the headlines from the home front.
Yes, back home in Nigeria, we also followed some headlines of interest. No agreement with FG, strike not ending soon. The Academic Staff Union of Universities and Joint Action Committee of the Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions and Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities have said the federal government did not reach a strong agreement with them that can lead to calling off the industrial actions. All the university unions in the country are presently on strike, and this is definitely not good for peace and security.
Sheikh, it doesn't look good.
It doesn't. It implies that we are not ready to settle our problems, because a society that its education is dying, that society is facing a total collapse.
A total collapse. And you see, it is not just about the ASU strike. The ASU strike has seen students in their hundreds of thousands, if not millions, back home. Some of them would have to increase the spending of their parents at home. Some will become idle and so exposed to all kinds of ideas which may not be necessarily healthy for them. And Nigeria is struggling at the moment also with a problem with drug use, drug abuse. We commend the Nigerian Drug Enforcement Agency. They have been doing a great
NDLG.
job.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you know,
of course.
with students away from school, at home, doing nothing, this portends quite some danger.
You know the burning news in Nigeria is the issue of Deborah. Why can't we think that had it been that students are all in school, that riot could be less? I think we are playing with danger, with fire in Nigeria if we allow our youths to be idle, doing nothing. Their minds will be easily attracted to issues like strike, like lynching and the other things. So I think it is right to call the attention of the government as well, the ASU, to strike a balance and bring end to the issue of strike.
Right, okay. Next we have religious protest banned in Kaduna State. Violators will be prosecuted. The Kaduna State government, in consultation with security agencies under the umbrella of the Kaduna State Security Council, has placed a ban on protests related to religious activity throughout the state. Samuel Arunwan, Commissioner, Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs, Kaduna State, made this known Saturday, 14th of May, in a statement signed by him. According to the statement, the prohibition became imperative in view of moves by some unpatriotic elements to organize series of for and against protests related to security development in one of the northern Nigerian states. That must be Sokoto State, I think.
Yes, it must be Sokoto State. And Sheikh, this one too, I think it is a positive development because if there is any state in Nigeria that knows so much about ripple effects concerning religious issues, issues like blasphemy, issues like mob action, I think it's Kaduna State.
Of course, then we talk of Plateau, and Taraba. You see, Nigeria is at danger. We must do something, and the earlier, the better. If we look at the situation on ground, lynching is becoming norm in Nigeria. People will accuse somebody for some committing offense, and there will be the police to arrest him, there will be the judge to judge him, and they will be the one to execute any judgments. That is what we have on ground, and that is the issue of Deborah. We have several issues like that. But whenever there is issue, it's supposed to serve a deterrent so that we will not have the same thing. But why are we repeating the same problem? Now, the government of Kaduna had come out with something that could prevent further issues. How I wish other states will follow the same vein so that we have a peaceful Nigeria.
And this is a reactive policy, but in the long term, what do states that seem to experience volatility in conflicts like this, what do you recommend state governments do? Kaduna State, for instance, we see this kind of action, but if you go there and you are on ground, you discover that Kaduna has fast become a tale of two cities. you have a particular part of Kaduna which seems to be for Muslims. You have another part which seems to be for Christians. And the gap is widening and widening over time. So beyond ban on protests, what other concrete things do you think government can do in order to foster religious peaceful coexistence among not just religious groups but also ethnic groups?
Yeah, it's not an easy task. It's a very strong and hard, demanding task. What I mean by this is you have those who are benefiting from the situation, largely the politicians and the clerics. And you find some kind of political issues attaching to it, indirectly covering it with religious conflict. And you have economy issue attached to it, getting religious cover. What we do is, what we have to do, or what Kaduna government in particular have to do, is to bring on board the stakeholders and be serious about it.
Be serious about it.
Yes. Remove any politics and let it be a clear message that we want a united Kaduna, a unified Kaduna, by extension, unified Nigeria, guided by love, tolerance, unity, and harmony. And we can't reach that until we control our tongues. Most of the things are being guided by hate speech. And unfortunately, our churches and mosques are used to promote hatred. We need to start teaching our followers love. The word love now, if you just write it on blackboard, the immediate thinking or perception of our youths is sexual lust. We have to come back to the drawing board and teach our younger ones what is love. Love your family, love your neighbor, love humanity, love your country.
Even love your enemies.
Even your enemies. If we don't use our mosques and churches to teach love, tolerance, unity, and harmony, we are not going to get out of this problem.
Love is the essence.
Yeah. Okay. We go on with the other news. Train abduction, negotiations deadlocked. Federal government seeks foreign assistance. It seems the kidnappers are insisting on the swap of their men in custody with the passengers kidnapped during March 28 train attack.
Sheikh, this is a difficult one.
Yeah,
Because
I'm one of the victims.
wow.
No, not being abducted.
No, I get the message.
They are affected, huh?
No,
Yeah.
Affected, yeah.
No, yeah.
I'm
We are,
affected.
yeah.
the Sheikh spoke about this.
Yeah, I spoke about this, and it becomes trouble. Why should I say something about it? Look at us now. How many? We are getting to 2 months.
2 months.
No arrest, no rescue, nothing.
And now negotiations are deadlocked.
Deadlocked. And we are seeking foreign intervention. For goodness sake, as a grandfather, as a father, as a good citizen of Nigeria, as a peace-loving somebody, as a human being, how do you feel when Nigerian citizens are there being abducted by the criminals, and we are trying as people, as nation, to surrender to their demands? How do we feel? We must start thinking positively about Nigeria. It is a pity. It is a very, very unfortunate situation. We need some people to rescue this country. But we can't rescue it if we are not careful about what to do during the coming election. I hope the Almighty will intervene and guide our thumbs as we print to the party which will rescue Nigeria, or the person.
We definitely need divine intervention.
And I like that. I like that we can solve this problem with the choices we make at the polling station
Of course.
next election. I hope Nigerians are listening. We can do a lot to change the course with our choices during the election. Thank you. Igbo Group seeks end to IPOB sit-at-home order. The group, known as Igbo for a Progressive and United Nationhood, has condemned the actions of hoodlums who hide under the umbrella of the indigenous people of Biafra to perpetrate their evil activities and inflicting pain on various sections in the southeast. In a press statement on Sunday, the national president of the group, Lawrence Onuzulike, called for the cancellation of the sit-at-home in the region, saying it has become unproductive.
Sheikh, I think one thing I consider very instructive here in this piece of headline is the fact that you have a group of the Southeast extraction calling themselves progressive, and what are they aiming at? United nationhood. You know, sometimes when you read stories about the Southeast, you think everybody who is Igbo wants to leave Nigeria. That's not true.
That's not true.
So stories like this are quite cheering,
Yeah,
aren't they?
Of course. You know, what we need in Nigeria the most at this point in time is unity. We can't afford it, a situation whereby some indigents of the nation will not travel to another part of the nation. They are afraid to move to some part. We want a situation whereby, I want to say it, but I know some people will think that it's very difficult. We want a situation whereby an Igbo man will contest election and win election in Sokoto. A Yoruba man contest election and win election in Kano. A Fulani man will contest election and win election in Enugu or in Benue. Let's start thinking of a new Nigeria, that we will look at one another as Nigerians first, and we prepare Nigeria more than our ethnic group or section. And I bet you we can't get there until when we started from our polity. When the politicians are campaigning, let's look at their agenda, their capacity, and their readiness, not their tribe and their religion. And when we start doing that, it will be simple, it will be easier for us to have united Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and then shortly after independence, a Fulani man won election in Enugu State. It's there in history. And then, of course, Easterners were winning election in the north.
Yes.
So, are we trying to now see, can we bring back the Nigeria of old? The Nigeria we used to know shortly after independence, where tribe, religion didn't really matter. Everybody was just interested in the project Nigeria and nothing else, not project religion.
And you know, the failure of national cohesion has become so emotive to the point that for some people who feel that the Fulani man is his enemy, eating meat from cow is also something he doesn't want to do. So you see, we're already having what will become like primordial sentiments that will reinforce the divisions among us. So if the politicians, even religious leaders, even ethnic champions do not take a step back, reflect, and change course, where we are headed to doesn't look good.
Yeah, I think we have to re-emphasize our identity. We have to redefine what is our identity. Am I a Nigerian first, or a Hausa Fulani, a Northerner first? Then we have to revive our culture. We have a culture. Love is part of the culture of typical Nigerian.
Deeply rooted.
Deeply rooted in us. But now we are losing that culture. And also we have a philosophy that we are good people, that we have moral standard and values. If we can revive that, it is easy to have a good Nigeria, a better Nigeria. And I think, I believe that it is very close. We are going there. We are gradually moving. That is one beautiful about bad things. Negative things open doors to opportunities to have more good things.
Yeah, I think people are becoming really outraged with the heinous crimes committed in the name of tribe or religion, and then perhaps the reactions or reactions or corrective measures put in place will redirect Nigerians to where we can live harmoniously and then work for the good of all. Thank you. Outrage as Okada riders kill, burn Lagos engineer over 100 naira. The unfortunate incident occurred on Admiralty Way, Lekki, Lagos, and the deceased is identified simply as David. There you go again. There you go again. 100 naira and the life is lost. Well, we begin to what is the worth or value of human life?
And you know, when we focus on mob action that has religious backdrop, let us not forget that much of the mob action that leads to lynching and burning of people, killing people, has nothing to do with religion, like this one. I read this story quite tearfully. This young man over the weekend, a sound engineer, with his friends, were trying to set up a venue for an event. So he arrived at the venue on Okada. And then there was argument between him and this Okada man over how much he should pay, 100 naira. And the story says the Okada man enlisted the help of his colleagues. And you see, there is quite a pattern about some people involved in this means of transportation, whether it is Okada or it is Keke. Very often, when their member is involved in a disagreement and they stop by, they don't even ask what the issue is. I don't know whether that is a structural thing, whether they gather and they agree. Whenever our member is involved, he must be right. But you see, this man is dead now.
What we're supposed to do in this situation is to come back and ask ourselves, where are we getting it wrong?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that will answer this question is the issue of Deborah. Why is it the world becomes so vibrant on the issue of Deborah? Because Nigerians spoke at once. Okay, good. Then ask questions. Why are we not speaking the same language whenever there is lynching? Regardless of religion and tribe. In the same Sokoto, tens of people were killed and burnt into ashes. And Nigeria was not vibrant because it has no religion, color, or motive, or drive. Let's start doing something from now so that we can change the narratives. That the life of Nigerian,
No matter the religion.
matters. I think if we can start doing that, we are going there.
Yes, we must put value, the real value to human life, because we cannot create any.
We can't.
We can't create any, so why destroy what you cannot create? Okay, that's sad, really. Okay, gunmen killed 323 security officers in 2022 report. The figure is based on the compilation of data obtained from the National Security Tracker, an initiative of the Council of Foreign Relations, a United States think tank, and the security operatives affected include those from the military, police, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Nigeria Correctional Service, Vigilante Group of Nigeria, Nigerian Drug and Law Enforcement Agency, and a Bubago security outfit.
Sheikh, this is a setback for our security agencies and also security generally in the country, because 323 security officers, those are prospective high-ranking officers, those are experienced officers, those are people who have received training, who have been on the forefront in different places of fighting crime. We have lost experience. We have lost citizens. We have lost those who have direct responsibility for our safety. This is a huge loss, and it sets us back, doesn't it?
It does. It did. We have to understand also that when you are losing vigilance in the community, your security is getting down. I don't know how our leaders feel when they read such a report. I want to assume that they felt bad whenever they read this kind of report. But the question is, what are they planning to avoid this kind of occurrences in the future? You know, we often celebrate other countries that Dubai is a very good place for tourism. We celebrate America, Britain, Saudi Arabia for the development they have, especially in terms of security. Now, the question is, who went there and built Dubai? Who developed America or Britain? There must be citizens that will build this nation. Unfortunately, there were people who built solid foundation for us to continue the building. But we abused that opportunity. We are now going back. The number of killed security personnel in 2023 is more than 300. If we continue like that, we will lose security personnel more than we did during Biafran War.
Wow.
And that will not help the matter. So we have to start doing something.
We have to start doing something. We will take a short break, and when we come back, we will go right into discussion on the topic of today, which is matters arising from Deborah Yakubu's death. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. You have been listening to Side by Side. And right now, we shall begin our discussion on the topic, matters arising from Deborah Yakubu's death. Again, our guest has been Sheikh Nuru Khalid. Some of you know him as the digital imam. Yes, he's the one in the studio. Now, Sheikh, I don't know how much you know about the circumstances surrounding Deborah's death. I don't know about that. But from what you know so far, how does blasphemy fit in? And I think you should speak to us about the true Islamic teaching about blasphemy, including what it consists in and how it is to be handled in the real teaching of Islam.
Well, you know, it's very difficult to speak on the issue of Deborah this time, but we must do it because of divergent opinion about it. First, you have the issue of Deborah itself. Then you have the reaction of the youth. Then you have the counter-reaction of the society, the larger society, and the diversified way of thinking. But let's look at your question carefully and approach it in this way. The first piece of the question demands what happened.
What happened?
Yeah. Really, Deborah overreacted, if I may use this word, when she saw a post in a WhatsApp group of their classroom. And that post was not, according to her own understanding, in line with what the essence of that group. Instead of her to stay within her right to reject that post or to caution the group that such a post should not be repeated in this platform. Quite. But she went further to attack the personality of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is where the question of blasphemy comes. The question of blasphemy arises from there. Now, Islamically, what constitutes blasphemy? When an individual crosses the limits of expression, the right of expression, he will say to blaspheme. What I mean by this is you have the right to reject Islam and say you are not a Muslim, or you don't believe in the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or you don't believe in Muhammad, or you don't believe the Quran was sent by God. This is expression of your own belief. In that regard, this is not blasphemy. But to attack the Quran or to attack the messenger or any of the messengers of God, not Muhammad alone, even if you are a Muslim, if you attack the personality of Jesus Christ, alayhi salam, or Holy Mary, you are now blasphemous. And your act must be a punishable offense. Now, if we agree that Deborah, if the voice that I heard is truly her own, then we must agree that she is blasphemous in that regard. Then who will now charge her and make a verdict on her, and who will execute that verdict? That is the issue. First, as an individual in Nigeria, I don't have the right to arrest somebody, but I have the right to invite the authorities to arrest him. Talk less of punishing him or passing a judgment on him. And that is where the youths were wrong. They're supposed not to attack her or kill her. Talk less of burning her alive or after death. Because if you say the punishment according to Islam is to kill her, then who will kill her and how? We have several ways of killing people. Is it by burning her alive? That is the body of contention here. And I think if you look at the Quran, there is no death sentence on blasphemy in the Quran. But there is, in the context of the Hadith, you have something where people can interpret that, yes, the result of blasphemy is killing. But it has to be under a judgment by a competent court of justice. That is to say, Deborah must be taken to a competent court of justice. She will be arraigned in the court, and judgment must be passed before anything, which we don't have in this case.
I'm wondering if there have been cases when in Islam someone was accused of blasphemy and they were taken to competent authority, and upon inquiry it was found that the accusation was not solid and therefore the person was acquitted. Do we have any such precedents?
Well, I can't remember quickly, but what I know is that we in Nigeria, as people, we are living in a pluralistic society. Now, we as diverse people have agreed to come and be together despite the differences. And we have agreed to live under certain laws enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If really we want to live together, we must respect this Constitution. Therefore, whether Deborah will be punished or not, in as much as we are living as Nigerians, our laws demand that she must be arrested and there must be investigation, and after the investigation she must be prosecuted. Have we done that? That is the issue.
There is, before I came to the studio, I had a discussion with a pastor. I told him we were going to discuss matters arising from Deborah Yakubu's death. And he said, when you go, ask the Sheikh about his opinion concerning his own concern. And what is his concern? He said, Islam is not the only religion that speaks of blasphemy. Christianity also speaks of blasphemy. African traditional religions speak of blasphemy.
And taboo.
Taboo, yes.
Now, in a pluralistic society, the discussion, in his opinion, discussions about blasphemy should take the back seat, and here is his reasoning. At a certain level, what a Muslim imam believes about Jesus may amount to blasphemy. For him, a pastor who believes in Jesus. Let's put this in more concrete terms. As a Christian, there is the belief that Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is God. You cannot be a Christian if you do not believe this. Now, in Islam, it is said that Jesus is not God. And Jesus is not the Son of God.
Yes.
He is the prophet of God.
That's our belief.
But throughout the history of Christianity, anyone who came out and said, Jesus is not the Son of God, Jesus is not God, anathema. It was blasphemy. In fact, you renounced your Christianity by uttering such because it was offensive. Let me not also add that there might even be a history of how those days, in ancient times, some believers tended to handle things like that. So, if we continue to talk about blasphemy, and at every turn we think of punishment, at a certain level, we already have our religions at collision. Because the preaching I am hearing from the mosque could actually be blasphemy. And the preaching I'm hearing from the church could also be blasphemy. How do we live in a society where the things that we know will necessarily set us on a collision, we allow them to be too important for them? I listened to you on AIT today and you said, religion shouldn't just be about how we get to heaven. It should be about how we live well here on earth. How would you respond to this, Pastor?
Well, you see, I started by saying it is difficult to discuss this issue this time, but we must do it. If we really want to live in peace, and we must live in peace, then what we do is not to shun away discussing blasphemy, but to teach ourselves what is blasphemy and how can we coexist without attacking our emotions. What I mean by this, I know what Jesus Christ is to you. If I attack directly or indirectly your emotion about Jesus Christ or Mary, that means I'm looking for trouble. So let's stop doing that. Let's be more concerned about how to live together. Let's be more concerned about teaching our followership what are the similarities between us and why should we live together. And let's teach ourselves that it is not your duty to punish anybody. It is not my duty to punish anybody. But let's focus on creating a trust between us and between the authority and the people. By urging the authorities to make sure that those laws that are in place are duly executed and with equity and justice. If we can have that, the issue of blasphemy will be at the back seat. The issue of cordial coexistence will be in the front seat. And the driver of the vehicle will be equity, and the vehicle will be justice. And you have a very wonderful society that I will see my neighbor trekking to the church, and I'm not ready to go out, but I will feel like rendering service to God if I take him with my vehicle to the church. And my neighbor will see me going to the mosque, and he will feel like rendering service to the Almighty if he drove me with his car to the mosque. Let's agree that we are worshiping the Almighty. We often hear an imam telling his followers that we are worshiping different God from their own. And you can hear a pastor telling his followers that my God is different from their God. Which is wrong, we know it is lies. We know who created this world is one God. Whether we perceive him right or wrong, we don't have two gods that created this world. So we have to be careful what we tell our followers, how we tell them, and what the effect of our statements will be. That is my take.
Peaceful coexistence in the front seat with the common grounds that we have, and then discussions about blasphemy taking the back seat. I don't know if you remember recently, as Christians celebrated the most important feast. I don't know what the most important feast in Islam is.
Well, the most important feast in Islam is the Arafat Day.
The Arafat Day.
Yeah,
okay.
That is the most important day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But unfortunately, it's not all the Muslims are opportune to be there.
Okay.
Because there is a call by God to select who will be there.
Okay.
Yeah. Followed by the Ramadan season, and which you have the little Qadr.
Okay. Now, for Christians, the most important feast is the feast of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You know, the whole of the Bible unites in speaking about this feast in a very simple way. Had Christ not risen from the dead, in vain will be our believing. You see, I am a Catholic priest. I am not married. In vain will be my choosing that life. We have multitudes of believers who sell their property or take their property or whatever, hand over to church to the glory of God. All of that will be stupidity. That's how central the resurrection is. Then I have someone who is the head of a bank in Nigeria authorize a statement saying Jesus rose from the dead like agege bread. I don't know if you heard that. There was outrage. But I hardly saw anybody talking about burning any of those banks. You will notice that I have not mentioned the name of the person bank, and also the name of the bank here. Because my Christian orientation requires me to keep all of that away. Which means, even though we talk about it here, it is for the sake of condemning that act and letting people know that that is not the way to go. So I am wondering, if we have to still teach one another that we need to speak respectfully about each other's religion, and also that there are lines to be crossed, how do we do this in such a way that we do not inspire or incite people? You will respond to this just after we come back from this break.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Radio Maria 91.3 FM, you have been listening to Side by Side, and we have been discussing matters arising from Deborah Yakubu's death. Again, our very special guest in the studio on this discussion has been Sheikh Nuru Khalid. Now, before we went on that prayer break, I was asking for your impression about what you think we can do to let believers understand that even though blasphemy hurts our sensibilities, we must always consider that violence and taking laws into our hands is not the option. How do we do that really?
Well, we start by learning to respect. If I respect you as human being, I will respect your rights and your emotions. If I respect that, I will understand you are a human being and you are bound to make some mistakes. If you attack my faith, first of all, I will look at you as a human being first, that maybe it's a mistake. And then try to warn you the consequence. But we have to teach our followers first to learn that respect, tolerance, and love. Then we now teach them to understand that, yes, if I want to learn respect, I also have to learn that respect goes both ways. It is a two-way traffic. What goes round comes round. That is why the Quran said, do not abuse what they worship, because in return they will abuse Allah. So if I want you to respect my religion, the first thing to do is to respect your own religion, because I want you to respect my religion. But to tell you that you have no religion, because I believe in my own, and you in return tell me that my own religion is fake, that is the problem. So we have to start teaching ourselves respect. Secondly, we have to start teaching ourselves the importance of tolerance. If I don't tolerate your words, you can't tolerate my own. But if you are tolerating my words and my actions, and now I become arrogant, I say I will not tolerate your own, that is a trouble. The central issue is to teach our people core values that we must respect, moral values that we must practice, and we now revive our institutions to start working properly. Family institutions, religious institutions, and social institutions.
He's going to ask some question, but the next question, but before then, if you permit me, I would like to offer up a suggestion.
Okay.
That if it is possible, both Christianity, Islam, and African tradition should consider that in a worst case scenario, in the event of blasphemy, when an accused is found to be guilty, the law should require the person to apologize.
Of course.
So that we don't start talking death, whether unofficially or officially, on matters of blasphemy. I think that if we begin that way on both ends, we can make some progress.
It's a good suggestion.
He wants to ask a question about Twitter.
All right, okay. Sheikh, there is a Twitter message that's said to have been made by the Imam of the Abuja National Mosque, Professor Ibrahim Makari. It reads, and I quote, "It should be known to everyone that we, the Muslims, have some red lines beyond which must not be crossed. The dignity of the Prophet, PBUH, is at the forefront of the red lines. If our grievances are not properly addressed, then we should not be criticized for addressing them ourselves." End of quote. And then there is another reaction from the Executive Director, Muslim Rights Concern, Murik, Professor Ishaq Akintola. He told Sunday Vanguard in a telephone interview something similar. He is quoted as saying, and I quote again, "There are red lines in every religion, including Islam." So, Professor Makari's comment is nothing new. Moreover, the red lines apply not just to non-Muslims. When a self-professed Muslim also crosses the red line, he or she will also bear the consequences. End of quote. Sheikh Khalid, please tell me, what is your impression about messages like this? Let's cast our mind back to what has come up in the course of our discussion.
Well, I think I have made some statements twice here that to discuss this issue this time is very difficult. This is one of the difficulties because anything we say must be reinterpreted from different people in different perspectives. As for the red line, yes, there is red line.
Yes.
No one will say no, there is red line. As for we don't want somebody to cross that red light, it's okay.
In all religions.
In all religions.
Correct.
But the issue is, are we supporting lynching? Are we saying that when somebody mischievously cross the red line, our red lines, we should not hand him over to the appropriate authorities? I think what they think or what they are trying to express is that even though if they were taken to the authorities, no judgment will be passed. The youths said it several times, or other people said it. But as for them, I think they don't mean that. They are trying to explain that, to my own understanding. They are trying to explain, even though it is not clear or they made it in a way that we can understand it, but they are trying to say that the youth shouldn't be blamed for the action they did because no one will do it for them. But if I am in their position, I will not make the same statement because I am not going to say taking law into individual hands is correct.
That's That's quite clear.
Yeah, yes, but if I may follow up, I mean, and of course, in the course of our discussion earlier on, you did say also that that if I had her right, if she was heard right, I mean, the young lady that was murdered.
Let me repeat my words.
Okay.
If the voice I heard,
okay,
it was hers.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Then now, the opportunity has been lost for a fair judgment or a fair resolution of this matter. The opportunity has been lost with this gruesome murder. What does it take you to? Our statute books or the Constitution is adequately equipped. Is adequately equipped to actually handle matters like this. Why don't we leave the opportunity or allow the law take its course, because the law can actually deal with things like this?
I think that's actually the point that the Sheikh has been making again and again. You know, even in his answer to the last question, he made that point quite emphatically, that put in the position that other people have, his message would always be that, number one, there are red lines, and we shouldn't shy away from saying that there are red lines. But when those red lines are crossed, what should we do? That is where there is an area of divergence, different opinions. But the Sheikh has consistently insisted that the way to go, both by Islam and by our secular laws, the Constitution, is not to take laws into anybody's hands. You know, it is to hand people over to, in fact, Sheikh, you didn't even say Islamic authorities. You said appropriate authorities.
Of course,
and I guess you mean by this that the appropriate authorities are those empowered by the Constitution.
Of course, you see, one thing, I know that there are laws that we, the Muslims, believe that this is our law. It is enshrined in the Quran and the Sunnah, which are not regarded by our Constitution. That is where the border of contention is. If we want to find a lasting solution for this problem, we must readdress the issue amicably. What are the laws that we want to change or we want to reform? Are we okay with the present constitution, or there are changes that will rebind us together? But for us to say that we want this outside the proceeding, you know, we have ways of changing things in Nigeria. This issue of blasphemy, if Deborah is alive and taken to a competent court of justice, if she is arraigned in a court, the fear is that the judgment enshrined in the hadith is not going to be executed for her. And now some youths have executed that judgment. Now, another fear is that any Islamic cleric who say this is wrong, he will be termed as supporting what Deborah did. And any person who says that what they did is right is indirectly against the state, because he is saying that he is supporting mob action and anarchy. This is the situation our scholars found themselves.
That's a difficult
It's a
situation.
very dilemma.
Really a very, very difficult
Dilemma.
one. Yeah. Well, we must move on, and then, as a matter of fact, these actions or these mob actions, they have no way in our law books, and they have nothing positive to contribute.
In as much as Nigeria is concerned, and in as much as the United Nations is concerned, you can't justify this kind of action. And as such, we are people living in this world, and we have to consider what is on ground, what is reality, and what are our needs. We have to consider them.
It's true. In fact, Sheikh Gumi, I read a statement he made yesterday about this. He said, a Muslim in Nigeria who kills anybody for blasphemy will not smell paradise for, is it 40 days or 40 years?
40 years. You will not smell the smell of paradise, even though the smell between the paradise and you is 40 years movement, 40 years journey, but you cannot smell it. If you are here and the paradise is there, you can smell the odor from 40 years journey, but you will not smell it. That means you cannot be at that point where you can smell it.
From what you have said, I think statements like that are not so easy to make, but
they are not.
The change that we are all talking about here, which we want to see for it to happen, will require statements like that. And I think on Saturday, protests erupted at the entrance to the Sultan's palace. Did that surprise you? What was the Sultan's, what were the grievances against the Sultan?
He condemned the killing of Deborah.
Oh.
That
was his problem?
That was his problem.
Now I understand why some politicians condemned and also
and we do the condemnation.
You know, even cars don't enter reverse gear that fast. Wow.
You can see, I repeatedly say that it is not easy.
Difficult.
It's very difficult. Because as a pastor, what is your constituency?
Church, Christianity,
The congregation. Yeah.
congregation.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a Muslim cleric, what is our constituency? Now, those people have listened to other scholars who said, in the case of blasphemy against my prophet, I have no choice. I have no ears to listen. I have no eyes to see. I can't understand anything. I am ready to die. And the people have listened to that. You are a scholar, they are scholars. Now, if you say, no, be calm, there is law in the land, they will attack you. They will say you are supporting Deborah. Many of us condemned what she did.
Yes.
Before saying that there is law in the land, let's respect our coexistence and let the law, the justice take its course. That is the problem.
You know, in the year 2019, I think, a Fox News reporter by the name John Allen Jr. was in Nigeria. And there was a seminar at which he presented the content of his book, which is about the global war on Christianity. And he made an interesting proposition. before I get back to that, because of the nature of the theme, the Christian authorities who were involved in organizing that seminar made sure that some imams from the National Mosque were also present at the seminar so that they will feel the temperature of what was being discussed and understand it was an open discussion. So during the discussion, he made a proposal that in every religion, there are radicals, extremists, fundamentalists. But then there are what he called moderates. By moderate, I don't think he meant people who do not embrace their religion fully. No, I think he meant people who practice their religion ideally respecting the religions of others. So he said, since you have in every religion fundamentalists and radicals, and then you have also moderates, one of the things we can do to make sure there is religious harmony and peaceful coexistence would be for moderates in one religion to identify moderates in the other religion and work with them. But I want to add, maybe another way to go is, since there is also a conflict between radicals, fundamentalists within the religion, and then moderates within the religion, maybe intra-religiously, the moderates should identify those among them, band together, so that instead of one voice not being loud, more voices together can be loud. What do you think about this?
This is the only way, this is an ideal way to reach where we want to go. The Christians cannot do alone in shaping Nigeria and reforming it to what we want, a better Nigeria. The Muslims cannot do it alone. And if there is problem, we suffer the consequences together. And it could be in a certain situation, the Christians suffer more, and in some, the Muslims suffer more. So instead of us to be paying prices of what the extremists, I don't want to call them fundamentalists, I want to call them extremists. Because instead of us to pay the price of their bad action or inaction, let's gather that price and pay it the right way. Pay the price of creating a better Nigeria. Instead of us paying the price of the worst Nigeria or the bad Nigeria created by the mobs and the actions of the extremists. Both sides we have them. I know of the Knight Templars.
Yes.
I read about them in the Christendom. You have them. You see their operation is just like what the Boko Haram did to the Muslims. So it's good for us not to allow the fundamentalists or the extremists, I don't want to call them fundamentalists, to define, we can't allow them to define our life for us.
Okay. Sheikh, let me just also inform that one of the most eloquent voices against the Crusades, it was an inside voice, St. Francis of Assisi. I think it was in Morocco when, or was it Egypt? I can't remember exactly. When an Islamic commander of a jihad regiment invited him to come and address the Muslims there. Looks like he identified someone there as a light. So he said, come, let us discuss. So you are right. If we can join hands across board and also within, things will be better. But before we go, there is one other issue I would like to bring to your attention. Fake news. Fake news was not left out of the mix of the fallouts from Deborah's killing. all kinds of inflammatory claims and videos were being thrown around. In fact, Bishop Kuka of the Diocese of Sokoto had to issue a public statement debunking claims that his residence and a particular church had been burnt. What do we do about fake news? You are called a digital imam not for nothing. There must be a reason. You are right there in the digital world. What is your pulse? How do you feel the pulse of fake news, and what do we do about it?
Well, you see, in every time, not only in this time when the social media is trying to challenge the mainstream newspaper or news companies, but this time is worse. Take an example what that news could create in Nigeria. The intention is for Christians to react. If the Christians reacted, particularly the Catholic, if they reacted now because Reverend Father Kuka was attacked, let's take action, it will be something. Fortunately, that was not achieved. Now, the way to tackle this kind of fake news is for us to agree that no religion allows you or permits you to take action on the basis of unscreenized news until you make inquiry and you arrive at the authenticity of that news. We have to start re-emphasizing this in our churches and mosques, that it's not every news that you take. You are not meant for consuming any news. Be aware of the source of the news and the effect of action, even if it is true.
Even if it is true.
Don't just react. Verify. And after verifying, kindly consult somebody before you take any action. That is the way to handle it.
We have come to the end of today's edition of Side by Side, and I must say a very big thank you to our very special guest, Sheikh Nuru Khalid. He's an Islamic cleric, scholar, and a peace-loving Nigeria. You have listened to him. Thank you very much, Sheikh.
Thank you for having me.
And our listeners, thank you for joining us on the program. The next edition of Side by Side will come your way on Wednesday, the 18th of May at 11 a.m. Until then, keep listening to Radio Maria 91.3 FM. I am Reverend Father Robert Achiaga.
I am Chiedu Ude.
Assalamu alaikum.